afternoon and welcome to Wealth Wednesday, a session focused on bringing IP into more conversations with wealth clients. So today we're going to be looking at why IP matters as part of a wealth planning conversation. We'll also be tackling some of the key objections to advising on IP, and we'll be sharing those best practice tips from advisors who are advising on IP, not only to help their clients, but to grow their business too. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our keynote speaker for today's session, Head of Business Development Operations at Openwork, it's Setal Mehta.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well and enjoying the week. I particularly found yesterday of interest to me and lots of insightful takeaways. I therefore, in the same vein, hope you find the next 15 minutes very thought-provoking. My name is Setal Mehta. I'm a protection advocate and supporter of Income Protection Awareness Week. This session is going to be focused on why income protection matters for wealth advisors, and as part of it, I'm going to call out some of the objections that I hear. Whilst I'm sharing these thoughts, if you have any comments, views, stories of your own to share, or solutions, please use the socials, because this is all about sharing best practice. So let me get straight into it. Traditionally, and I'm throwing this out there, income protection has been overlooked by wealth advisors and clients alike. Based on various industry forums I sit on, features and articles that I read, what I can see when discussing protection with the wealth community who aren't engaged, because by the way, there are plenty who are wonderfully engaged, there are a number of objections. And these are the ones you can see on the screen. It's not financially worth it. I don't want to risk my client relationship. My clients are too old. It's too complicated, or protection is beneath me. Now, clearly, no one ever uses those words, but it is the elephant in the room. Like I said earlier, there are plenty of individuals who, in the wealth management community, who do this really well, and I'm fortunate to know many of those and deal with them on a day-to-day basis. Those individuals don't just understand income protection, but they absolutely understand the value and they put it in place. And again, if you're those individuals, share your stories, because for those who want to get involved in income protection in the wealth community but aren't, they will benefit from it. Taking a step back though, and using a slightly different lens, why does IP matter in the wealth space? At its heart, the role of a wealth advisor can play a huge part in the journey of a client. Conversations involve planning for the future in terms of pensions and retirement advice, making the most out of your savings and seeing investment growth, but equally, as we all know, all of this is underpinned by the ability to earn an income and retain it. But what if? What if a client is off sick or unable to work? How will they continue to contribute to that ISA? How will they continue to be able to add into that deposit for a first home? How will they continue to contribute to their pensions to have a healthy retirement lifestyle? The simple answer could be, I'll just eat into my savings. Or equally, as a client, I might just say I'm going to stop contributing and I'll accept that there is a deficit. But why? If you could set up an income protection policy that allows you to continue to make those payments, why? Now, turning the lens slightly in terms of a client journey, and you will all think of clients that fall into this category. Latch on to those names. When a client starts their career, all they have is income and expenditure. And as a wealth advisor, you're going to help them set up their first ISA. And they're going to continue to spend enjoying their nights out and going to the gym, etc., etc. You might then, as a client, find your perfect partner. You start to take holidays together, date nights, etc., etc. You then purchase your first property. That starts to become your first big ticket regular expenditure. Now again, you can all think of client names. And this could all easily stop for your clients in the event they're unable to work due to ill health. They then have children. That will bring several responsibilities and lots of different expenditures over a long time horizon. But it's not just children. Individuals are living for a longer time. So parents become dependents and you've got to care for them, and that increases living costs. And of course, you've got the final stretch, those 5 to 10 years before retirement starts, and you want to maximize the value that can create. Think about any of those stages on the screen right now. What happens if your client is sick and they're unable to pay their way? They're unable to contribute to their outgoings. They are unable to keep up with payments. They're unable to support loved ones. Now that might sound really overly emotional, but that's the reality. That's what clients will face. And as we know, 1 in 8 people will be forced to stop working due to ill health. And by having that conversation, you can ensure that those 1 in 8 individuals do not have to worry. But trying to get income protection, let's switch it around. If you're in your 40s and you're dealing with a client in your 40s, it will be more expensive versus a client who is in their 20s. And back to the slide before, somebody's just got their first employed role. That is an ideal opportunity to find them income protection, and it will be much cheaper. And hey, review it down the line. Because when somebody is in their late 30s, early 40s, and maybe even 50s, trying to talk to them about that, cost can become a prohibitor for them. But also you might say to yourself, do I want to invest into their pension at that age, or do I want income protection? Save yourself that conversation by starting early. And of course, I very much talked about the employed environment perspective. Many of you watching this will have directors and self-employed clients running their own businesses, with it being the sole income generator. As a wealth advisor, there is a duty of care, not just to help grow investments and set up the perfect retirement plan, which many of you do wonderfully. It's there to keep that going in the event that a client has illness. That's where the wealth community can come into their own. And of course, mortgage and protection advisors should be having the same conversations, and we've talked about that over the last couple of days. But one of the biggest differences for me is clients are paying a fee for your service. You're doing the great work that I know so many of you do. How easy would it be to entwine in that protecting your income conversation? And do you know what? It's not as hard as you may think, because once you start to have that conversation, because you've got that trust from the client, I'll tell you what, they will consider it. And imagine that conversation when that 1 in 8 scenario happens and you get that call, you've supported their retirement plans from falling away. That's why IP matters in the wealth community. But let me now move on to some of the objections and prohibitors. And look, I know these are pictures and you might not understand all of them. Trust me, when I start to talk through each of them, they'll make sense. Now, you'll recall in my opening remarks, I talked about the elephant in the room. Protection is beneath me. Now, I really don't believe in the whole that is the case. However, I've come across individuals in various forums across the industry who have either insinuated it or you get that feeling. But I'm afraid that's the reality of the world that we live in. And I'm sure many of you watching will have felt that too. And I suspect some of you that are watching are thinking, do you know what? That's true. Yeah, I won't say it. But I've moved on from protection. Now I'm now focused on high net worth wealth management. Well, my ask of you, if you are in that group, is okay, fine. If I'm absolutely not going to convince you, and this week hasn't done, and you're not going to write it, fine. But then just refer it to somebody that you trust. You all know protection specialists or mortgage and protection advisors or other wealth advisors who will do this. So if you're not going to write it, then refer it, but please do not ignore it. The next one is, we've seen a seismic shift in the average age of a wealth manager in the last 5 years, and well done to all of you that have supported the next generation or a career changer or built academies. But actually, if I think about those that I deal with day in, day out, many of them have been in the industry for 20 plus years. They started their career in protection, and a significant number of cases have been focused on income protection because that has been front and center. So for me, there are some exceptional skills that people have had and used, but they've just changed the direction of their conversation. I absolutely do not believe it's about skill and ability. It's about just a shift in the conversation that takes place. So it's just as easy to bring in that extra conversation that you know that you will have had in the past, but you can do. But hey, if skills is an issue, this week will hopefully have given you everything you need to know, and you've still got a couple of days to go. I'm really not going to spend much time around the point of fairness and it not being worth financially, because anyone who advises clients on protection today, in my opinion, gets paid absolutely fairly. It's not an easy job to do because there is work involved and you're chasing clients and you're chasing pipeline, but actually it's fairly remunerated. And if you go back to that scenario before where I said those who've been in the industry and started 20 years ago and they've continued to provide protection advice, you're now receiving that regular monthly income off the back of all those policies, and it's paying off some of your fixed costs. I'm sure some of you watching this will say, no, it's still not enough. And equally, some of you watching this will say it's far too generous. I can't fault the protection providers for remunerating advisors fairly. The next one is complexity. It crops up every so often. And I speak to advisors and they'll say to me, well, there's budget versions and full versions and there's family income benefit and there's value-added services. To those in that category, I ask you to take a step back when you essentially started in the wealth space for the first time. How many of you have said, where do I draw the line if a client is at the age of 47? Is it pension first or is it continue to contribute into an ISA? Is it BPR or not? Should I go off platform or on platform? What do I do about a client who really wants to go into ESG and it's not really my forte? Think about all those conversations for the first time, but then you did your second, your third, your fifth, your 10th, your 20th case, and it all becomes natural. Well, do you know what? Protection is no different. The other side of it is, as wealth managers, you do this wonderful job of painting pictures and scenarios. You don't talk products straight away, or many of you certainly don't talk products straight away. Well, protection is no different. Now, what happens if somebody is not able to pay for their mortgage or unable to put into their ISA or their children's ISA? Paint that picture and bring in product at a later stage. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my client. For me, it's a red herring. A client today pays you a fee. They've signed a fee agreement. You're looking after their life savings. They bought into your service. You're qualified. It's a great place to be. You've done all the hard work. A client absolutely trusts you. And more so, if they're ever in the unfortunate position that they're unable to work due to ill health, they will be equally grateful when they call you and you say, don't worry, I can continue to ensure you've got a regular income and you'll continue to have the retirement lifestyle that we've worked towards. Top of my list, and the one that's bottom right, is intergenerational wealth transfer. You've worked really hard to accumulate a client's wealth. It will then go to the children or the grandchildren. 1 in 3 clients do not keep the financial advisor that their parents or grandparents have used. So it's really important that you connect with those clients. And why not use income protection to connect with a client, especially if you go back to a couple of slides before and I talked about when somebody has their first role. I now want to move on to sort of some sharing of best practice. Why I've got 3 black and white pictures, I have no idea, but chaps, I apologise. I'm going to start with Matthew Chapman, income protection advocate. I liked something I saw him talk about a number of months ago where he approaches income protection conversations as a trifecta. Income when you're alive, income when you're in retirement, and income when you're no longer alive. And that's exactly what you as wealth advisors discuss with your clients. Let's make the most of the money that you have today. Let's prepare for the future and let's leave a legacy for loved ones. Underpinned with all of that is an income protection policy that allows you to continue to contribute to have all of that. I recall Catherine Knowles or Roy McLaughlin quite simply putting this as income protection costs £1 a day, and you are going to spend that £1 a day protecting your income and your long-term financial well-being. Well, for wealth advisors who deal with clients with hundreds of thousands of pounds, let alone millions of assets under management, £1 or £2 or £3 a day doesn't seem the end of the world. It's a no-brainer for me. Johnny Timpson, on many occasions you use this wonderful line which I love and I think resonates really well with the wealth community. Treat protection as an asset class. Treat protection as an asset class. Now, when you hear that and you have a mindset shift and you consider that in your conversations, you won't go too far wrong. And look, there's lots more I could talk about, and I haven't even started on how to use cash flow forecasting to bring in the income protection conversation. Sarah Hogan is a colleague of mine at the Open Work Partnership. She's amazing in this space. If you've not seen any of her material, have a look at some of her LinkedIn posts and you will absolutely be able to take away how you can use cash flow forecasting to support that protection and income protection conversation, along with many other tips. So look, in conclusion, the retail distribution review happened. Investment advisors and wealth managers have predominantly focused on growing assets and retirement planning, and I totally understand why. But the pandemic has shone a very sharp light on the impact of needing to dip into your savings, and therefore income protection has truly become vital. People understand it like never before. So IP should be a core part of holistic financial planning and wealth management. So it's every advisor's responsibility, not just the mortgage and protection advisors, but those of you watching today from the wealth community, to ensure protection is an integral part of the advice process and you allow income protection to be front and center of every conversation, because you can set the best investment strategy in the world, the best retirement horizon in the world. But if a client's income stops because they're unable to work and they cannot afford those contributions and their outgoings, I absolutely guarantee you, it will impact all of the hard work that you and your clients have put in to build that future. Thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope you found some of this useful. And if you do have success stories and this has resonated, please do share with them. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Thanks so much, Cecil. Some really interesting points coming out there, and as well as highlighting, I suppose, and challenging the common objections to IP from a wealth perspective. And you mentioned cash flow forecasting as a really useful tool to incorporate IP into wealth conversations. And that brings us nicely onto the next presentation from Gemma Darcy of Darcy Financial Planning, who will now tell us how she does this in practice. Enjoy.
Thank you for inviting me along to today's session. This is a quick run through of the agenda. I will discuss the visual impact a cash flow can have and show you that. I'm going to cover off the impact on the client's wealth, and then I will summarise that at the end. So why have I been asked here today? Why does it matter to me so much? Well, in my 18 years career as a financial planner, I have seen the impact that ill health can have, not just on my clients, but on friends and family. It's not just financial, it's also psychological and emotional. And it's my job to put my clients in a position where they understand the impact that not having the right protection for them will have on their financial future. As part of my role now, I've developed in the last 5 years as a lifestyle planner, is to really get under the bonnet of what my clients' values are, what their goals are, and what do they want to achieve in their life. And it could be future aspirations to travel more. It could be to help out children or grandchildren in the future, to have more time with them, so retire earlier or semi-retire earlier. So I really try and get under the bonnet, find out what is it you're looking to achieve, what do you do now that you love and you don't want to give up? And then I quantify that. So how much will that cost you? What's your expenditure right now? And what would it be in the future if you want to do all these things you've just told me you would love to do? And then the great thing about cash flow is that then I put that into a visual bit of software that actually will show them that future. And when I say I put it in, I'm very lucky because I work alongside a very, very talented man, John Whitefield, who actually builds the plans for me on behalf of my clients. And he also presents those to my clients on Zoom screen share, so we can have an interactive conversation and make amendments to their future goals. So it basically means that I get to protect their financial future. So what I want to run through with you is a real life client scenario. This is a client meeting that I had around about 2 months ago. John and Lorna, aged 30 and 32. Now, I've changed their names, of course, but the plan itself is exactly the same plan that I presented to my clients. So their situation is they're expecting their first child in November. He has just been promoted and has gone from earning 38,000 a year to earning 75,000 a year. And he's an accountant, so he wants to contribute more to his pension. He's already doing quite a lot more than most people do, but he really gets the benefits of doing so. However, having worked with him for a couple of years, he really doesn't like protection. It's something that he's avoided. He's listened to me, but he hasn't taken on board yet the impact that will have. So we wanted to understand the difference the plan that we've spoken about will make. What difference, Gemma, will it make to me and my future and my child and my partner's future if I make these changes and I do what you've told me to do? So what we've done is, between John and myself, we've built him a financial plan that shows him, if you make these pension contributions, if you do these things, this is what your financial future will look like. And we did a cash flow plan. We use a system called Buoyant to illustrate this to a client. And what we then basically did was we did a Zoom screen share. We went through what we call the expert financial plan. So the plan, if you take on board the advice that I'm providing for you, to show them the impact of making those decisions will have to their financial security in the future. Now, let me just say, the plan itself had no red in it. So you can see from this one, this is the plan that we showed him that said, this is what your life looks like if you get sick in 5 years' time and you lose the ability to work. Now, before that, we showed him the expert financial plan, which hopefully will be the one that's more realistic if he doesn't get ill. Now, he has absolutely no sick pay from his company, and he certainly doesn't have enough savings to sustain him if he becomes ill. His partner does. She's an NHS nurse, but she will be going from full-time to 3 days a week because they're expecting their first child. So the security that comes from that employment is also being removed somewhat as well. So for those of you that haven't used a cash flow plan before, let me first of all just position to you what a lot of these lines mean essentially. So we've got the line going up, which is their income between the two of them. And then the one going across here is their accumulation stage, the bit where they're working and they're able to contribute to things like pensions, investments, etc., to give them security in the future. It then goes all the way through until age 100. Now, we build our plans till age 100 because we very much think that if it works till then, it will work if you actually die sooner. So it's really important that we show them, the longevity of life as it's expected to be going forward. Now, what we've also got is their goals were for them to retire when he was 60. So we've got income, which is up here, and then we've dropped that income and said, actually, if you stop working, your income will go down to here because you will just be on his partner's income. We've then got what we call the basic need. So this is their expenditure, as they've told me, for their basic necessities, which are mortgages, utility bills, food, some smaller holidays. And then we've got the total needs. This black line up here is how much they need based on their lifestyle goals. So that continues to run, both lines do. Now you can see here, straight away, in year 5, they've got some of their savings and investments, so they can almost cover their basic needs, but still a small shortfall. And actually the reality of this situation is that actually their life looks a whole lot different. All of the future long-term plans, short-term plans are taken away from them, and those choices that they have while they are healthy and working will get removed. Now, we've probably all been there where we've heard someone's lost their job, someone can't work, someone's had this happen, someone's been diagnosed with cancer, and the emotional turmoil that can cause, not just for the person suffering, but from their surrounding family, can be devastating. So visually showing a client this picture, after you've told them about the expert financial plan, which is if everything looks rosy, can really, really help a client understand and visualize the impact of not having protection. Okay, so we go all through the lines, and then once we get through to age 60, well, actually, there's a little bit here of money purchase pension that he could access to cover both his basic and his total needs. But that runs out. And then they've got state pensions and then her NHS pension. But it's never enough to give them that future lifestyle that they want. So what's the solution then? Well, the solution I put in place for this client, and again, just 2 months ago, was £40 a month premium for £3,000 a month cover. So what difference does that make? Well, you can see straight away on this chart, it's exactly the same situation, sickness starting at the same time, but instead of having no income coming in, he's got this purple, which other income is the income protection, £3,000 a month, which is inflation linked, running till he's age 60. Now, for somebody that's earning £75,000 a year, £40 a month is something that he just could not say, well, actually, I can't afford that. This is protecting all of his future financial plan. So that's the visual that we showed my clients. So let's just talk now a little bit about the impact for us as wealth planners, not just on us not having the duty of care and not doing our job properly, but physically for our businesses in the future. How will that impact us? Well, actually, the top chart here is their assets, essentially. So their liquid assets, the money that they could spend. And you can see that the impact of having that £40 a month policy is the difference between him running out of money completely at age 64, or him actually having plenty of money to survive and live and do all those things that he wanted to do right up until age 100. Okay, so what does that mean for the client? So in summary, we've protected him and his family. We've provided peace of mind for the client and for me personally as his advisor, for me, so I know that I've done everything I need to do. I've protected the client, but also the plan. The cash flow plan for me and my clients is a working document. It's there for our future reviews and for any changes that happen to the client. So we've protected that as well as their future aspirations. We've maintained their ability to invest for their future. So their future aspirations, yes, they might change should they become too ill to work, but they've still got the choices. And from a wealth planner's perspective, you've sustained the regular premiums. So those regular premiums that he was looking to contribute, which is about £1,500 a month, stay. The funds under management stays and builds. It doesn't just stay stagnant. And most importantly, from my perspective, the reputation. The reputation for Gemma and Darcy Financial Planning is huge. And it's so important to me that I protect my clients and protect my business. So it makes good business sense. So protection essentially is vital. Now, if anyone would like to talk about this way of working, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to do so. And I hope that really helped you. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Gemma. I think that was a really great way to visually present the value that IP brings, both in the short term, the longer term, and at a retirement stage of life as well. And as you mentioned, clearly IP is the right thing to do from a client perspective, but also from an advice business and reputational perspective as well. So that brings us nicely onto the second half of today's session, which is the wealth panel. So I would like to invite our experts to join us. If you just give us a couple of minutes. I think Victor and Daniel, I think we can hear you, but we can't see you. Are you able to?
I have no way of switching on my camera.
No,
Okay.
likewise, Victor, mine's not allowing that either.
Okay, all right. We might have to, fortunately we've got mic up. We might have to just dive in for now, and we will see what we can do in the background if that's okay. So I will introduce our experts, and I would ask you to all give us a wave, but given that we can't see two of you, yeah, we'll have to improvise a bit, but at least Mike, you can. So we're fortunate to be joined by Mike Allison, Head of Protection at Paradigm. We also have Daniel Weaver, Advisor at Middleton Wealth Management, and finally Victor Sachs, Advisor at VS Associates. So before we kind of jump into the panel and while we work on the tech in the background, if you do have any questions, either on the content that you've seen already or on what we're going to be talking about in the panel, please do pop your questions in the chat box below. We'll try to address them here if we have time, and if we don't, we'll make sure that we come back to you personally. So let's jump in with the first question then. So Settle mentioned, one of the main objections from wealth advisors that we often hear when it comes to IP is that, wealth clients tend to be a little bit older. Perhaps the cost of IP is prohibitive. So to that point, I'd be really keen to understand from the panel the types of client that IP does and possibly doesn't work for. And perhaps Victor, you would.
I'm sorry. Anyway, we are where we are. I think we all know, if we've got a client who's in their 60s receiving pension income, a heavy stream of investment income, A, they're at an age that will probably preclude them from getting cover anyway, and B, a sickness, an accident, or an illness that occurs to them, their income is unaffected. Yes, their lifestyle may change, but their income is not affected. For me, it's looking at where it does work well. Anyone is in the corporate sector and looking at people who run their own business, for an example, will pretty much be focused on, me selling the business. The pension is, I don't need a pension, it's a business. That's another discussion. The business will always be there. And it's then trying to turn around and say, well, tell me what would happen if. And what we are seeing now is, certainly when I first started in this profession nearly 30 years ago, you'd be talking of accident. You'll be talking of a real horrible illness, and you'll be talking of someone that would be unable to go to work. Now, when we look at being unable to do the material and substantial duties of your job as a definition, does that mean if we now put our hands behind our back to simulate that we have broken our wrists, that you now try and use a laptop computer to run our business? Are all of us today in need of income protection? I can't answer that question, but can you do the material and substantial duties of your job without being able to use a laptop? What does coronavirus do to that individual? Are there companies that will provide? I think it's more worth a conversation and a point of discussion. And going on to looking at Gemma's situation where she successfully put that income protection in place, she, I dare say she's also going to go looking at the mother of the child, because if the mother was sick or ill and unable to take care of the child, the man is going to, he's going to either have to reduce hours or do something to be at home to look after the child, or are they going to look to employ some home help? So there is, there are some very good situations where some gentle discussion. You don't need to undo your briefcase and throw everything at them, but some gentle, calm discussion, whether you're a financial planner or financial advisor, 2 ears, 1 mouth, have a listen to what's being said, but throw back exactly what they say to you. That's my view.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. I think it's a good point, because I suppose Settle touched on kind of, age being an issue, and actually from a personal perspective, speaking to clients a little bit earlier when IP is more affordable. But I think, you make a good point that actually from a business perspective, and from, for those clients who are directors of limited companies, potentially, they have a huge need for IP. And as you say, it's also those accidents as well that could lead to them not being able to work. So I think you make a really good point there. So next question then. We all know that compliance is a really important aspect of an advisor's work. So I'd like to ask the panel whether they feel that IP should be, I suppose, a compliance must consider in the wealth space. And Mike, I'd really like to pass this question to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I guess, firstly, Kate, almost just to park compliance for a minute, almost to reiterate what Gemma said, is that it's amazing how, advisors can have a real positive effect on the wealth of their clients, which is what they're there to do, by recommending protection to sit alongside, what they do and their portfolio, as Gemma outlined. But we have got to consider compliance, and we've got to consider, what we as distributors, advisors have to do in that compliance space. And of course, compliance doesn't sit still. And many people will have perhaps picked up over the last a few weeks in the press the new consumer duty rules that the FCA are looking to put in place. At the minute, we've gone through, or they are in the process of going through, a consultation. The consultation papers were sort of asked to be put back into the FCA at the end of July, and we expect that a new rule book will come out towards the end of December, beginning of January, which will really focus on, you know, what they consider to be the duty of a broker in relation to his customer. And it's been described in many different ways, but one of them, some of the best ways of putting it is it's going to be TCF on steroids, and it's therefore going to be quite a significant change to the way in which the FCA look at a range of products and services, but protection for for once is going to be a big part of what they do, and it therefore shows, you know, the focus that the regulator is having on protections, and most importantly, I guess, consumer outcomes. And for the first time, advisors are going to have to start looking back as well as looking forward in relation to TCF about exactly what processes they have put in place to ensure that their consumers have good outcomes along a range of products and services. But I say specifically in terms of protection. In terms of forcing advisors to go down the protection route, I'm not sure whether that yet is there, but we don't know what the outcome is going to be until December or January. But our inference is that it will just change quite significantly. And they're looking at 4 key areas: communications, products and services, customer service, and price and value. But in those first 2, in terms of comms and products and services, it will be how they communicate to their clients, what is available, and when they communicate it. And importantly, it will be, are they communicating what is advisable out there at the right time? So when they're sat down with them, and as Gemma went through with her, you know, sort of presentation, there will be a duty to communicate to them what is available. And I think that is going to be a main change in the focus on how advisors may have to look at protection in relation to other products where they haven't previously.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mike, for explaining that. So clearly, kind of protection is of course, you know, the right thing to do from a client perspective, but then there's going to be kind of more focus on it to be mentioning products at the right time, as you say. Brilliant. Okay, so next question for the panel then. So Cecil's keynote touched on the elephant in the room. So this view that, you know, potentially some wealth advisors feel that protection is below them, or we've also heard that some advisors, you know, consider protection to be more of a sell, I suppose, and they don't want to be seen as salespeople. So I'd love to ask both Daniel and Victor. Perhaps Daniel, you can go first. You know, as a wealth advisor yourself, what your thoughts are on this elephant in the room.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I think it is there for a lot of people. Ultimately, we are selling ourselves, you know, but we're doing it in a way, in a more friendly and calming and building a journey with the client together. You know, we're not, you know, you can walk into a mobile phone shop and the person in the shop is selling their product, their contracts, and it's quite a hard sell. And if you make the wrong decision, then you can get a new phone in 2 years. But with a wealth planner and a wealth advisor, if you make the wrong decision, it could be disastrous. But as advisors, we are actually putting our experience and our own thoughts and guidance there for the client to go on that journey. And we're doing it in a way, there are different ways to sell yourself. There's a soft sell, there's a hard sell. Now, my background is not a salesy background. It's further from the truth. It's a customer service background. And I've learned to educate clients with them, get them to buy in with me to go on that journey. I'm not saying they must do this, this, and this in order to do, you know, and they must go with me. Ultimately, my aim is that they build a relationship with me so we can go on that journey together. So I've still sold myself, but I've done it in a softer approach and a softer touch and a more emotive way with the client than actually you would do if you were going buying a phone, for instance, or whatever it may be. So don't be scared of selling yourself. You've just got to do it in the way that fits you and what your outcome and what you're trying to get from speaking with that client.
Got it. And Victor, is there anything you'd add to that?
More binary, I guess it becomes the fact that I'm in my mid-50s. Of course, we're salespeople. You know, if you've got a load of, whether you're all fellows, whether you're all diploma, whether you're chartered or whether you're certified, if you're up against someone of similar qualifications, you want that business as much as the other person does. If you're with a partner, you've sold yourself. The biggest sale that you can ever do. So of course we are. Yes, it's ways in how that we do it. And some may like the style and approach of one and not like the style and approach of another, as Daniel just said. But I think we have to realize whether we're doing cash flow forecasting, whether we're building bespoke portfolios, whether we're outsourcing, et cetera, we are ultimately selling ourselves each time we go and see our client. And they expect us, you know, they are entrusting us with every aspect of their financial life. And as our next case that we write could end up being our last one, I would hate it because I haven't brought up a key subject that's on my brain for my client, and it's my job to make sure that they're aware of what my thoughts are about a certain thing. So yes, we're all salespeople.
Got it. And Victor, another question for you actually. So I suppose some of these wealth clients, you know, could well be and probably are in a strong financial position. So actually, maybe the need for IP is a little bit less obvious or not immediately obvious. How can wealth advisors kind of challenge this client view? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it really interesting point that you're making, and I think there'll be a lot of people watching this that will maybe either not want to discuss, not want to ask, or as in Gemma's situation, where it's like, no, I'm not interested. I don't think there's anything wrong on your annual reviews to go back and almost run a checklist. Look, we've done this and we did that, and that's working. And the brief which you gave me was this. Now, let me talk about, because I'm seeing, for example, that we're looking at this life that you're going to have in 15 years' time is based on blah, 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 blah. Talk to me. Why have we not discussed income protection before? Just remind me. I'm sure we have, but remind me why we haven't. And allow that client to come on. At the end of the day, it's a corny phrase, you are stress testing the individual against unforeseen circumstances. And the idea to push and prod and poke and find weaknesses in the plan is now your job to then go back and say, I found the weakness. This is how we can plug it. And I'll see you again in 6 months' time or a year's time, and constantly do it. We're doing it with investment strategies. We're constantly doing cash flow forecasting. What's the pandemic done to our money? Well, now what's going to happen if you're sick or ill? And that's what you're doing. So there's no reason why you wouldn't ask. And I don't think you have to sit there and go, excuse me for asking, but I just want to, you know, you be firm, be positive, outline what you've already discussed with them. And why is it we haven't discussed this area? Remind me again and let them talk.
Yeah, I like that. So it's really about those kind of regular reviews with the clients. And that's a really good tip. Fantastic. Okay, so next question then, and this is a question for Daniel actually. So another point mentioned by Settle is the importance of signposting to a trusted protection advisor if you're not writing IP yourself. And so Daniel, as an advisor who regularly signposts for IP, can you tell us kind of why this makes sense for you and your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just touch as well for the St. James's Place partners that are on the call as well. We do have an internal protection specialist team. They are very, very good. It's very smooth transfer over. So for those that are not familiar with that are part of the partnership, then I would encourage you to do that. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you separately and do that. But externally, it's really important that actually you surround yourself with somebody that you trust. I think a lot of people don't do that because of the fear of somebody else being involved with their client. Now, that is on us as advisors to find the people that we trust. And what I've found by referring externally as well is it actually, from a commerciality point of view, it actually benefits my business, because if I'm passing income protection to an external advisor and a referral partner I trust, when they're with that client or a different client that I haven't engaged with and would probably never encounter, they've got me in their mind. So when it comes up about pensions and investments and situations like that, they are happy to refer them back to me because I've given them business. So like we've said from the start, it's nothing to be scared of about referring out to somebody that you know, but you've got to do your due diligence and make sure you trust them, because they are speaking to your client after all. There's a factor from us as wealth planners. We know that the pension transfer process and the investment transfer and the setting up pensions, it can be quite a lengthy process with all our compliance, and putting another cog in that wheel of referring to a third person, the timing needs to be right, because what we don't want to do is obviously overload the client with conversation with you as an advisor and with a third party income protection person, because it's too much for a client when they're trying to get on with their life and they're doing the job as well. So as part of that relationship with the third party referral and the protection referral, make sure that you've got your timings lined up. So there is a period of time as a wealth advisor where we're doing our reporting and our suitability letters and our compliance, and the protection person can fit in the middle of that, because the client isn't having meetings with us for a week or two while we're prepping all that up and doing our compliance. They can get the protection sorted, and then we can go back and finish our recommendation off, and at which point they've also spoken to somebody that we trust who has reinforced our initial conversations, because they've gone and done the protection, and then they've spoken, oh, I know you've been referred from Daniel, and this, you know, and he does a great job and he'll help you out with this. So it's just reaffirming and reinforcing what we do. So there's no reason to be worried about that from my point of view. I've got some excellent people that I work with in that sense. And yes, like anything, you've got to trust them and you've got to know them and like them and get on with them. But once you've got that foundation in place, then it's an opportunity to increase your commerciality, because they will refer clients to you. They absolutely will. It's happened to me. I know it does. So I'm not just sat here guessing. It has happened to me. So, don't be scared of it. Go and make sure you get with the right people, and it will open other doors. And it may be an extra client a month or 2 clients a month, but that's 24 clients a year that you wouldn't ordinarily have been in front of. So, that from my point of view, it's really improved my commerciality as a business.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. I think it makes loads of sense, again, for the client and the business to be so signposting. And I like what you said, about kind of understanding the full process and where that protection conversation could fit in the most kind of seamless way. So we've got about 5 minutes left, and that we're focusing a lot on pledges this week as a way to hold ourselves accountable and make real positive change in the IP market. So my final question to all 3 of the panelists is, what's your IP pledge? So Mike, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I guess as a distributor that works with lots of DA firms in the protection space, the key thing is not just to see what comes out of the regulatory changes, but also just to concentrate on educating and motivating people through that education to want to look at specific areas that they deal with. I mean, Gemma sort of outlined cash flow forecasting and some of the absolute key times when you need to speak to your clients about specifically IP, and specifically as obviously they get older and older, the practicalities of the IP prices get higher and higher and underwriting gets harder and harder. So it is educating, I think, to a certain extent, and making sure that people are well aware of the opportunities that sit there linked to investment portfolios.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. Victor, what's your IP pledge?
Yeah, so if anyone's out there connected to me on LinkedIn, you'll know that I regularly post what's called a fridge talk video. It's basically me standing in front of the fridge having a chat. So it's Income Protection Awareness Week. So I will be doing a fridge talk on income protection to reach the 2,500 connections that I've got. And then we'll put that on Twitter and we'll put that on Facebook. So all being well, around 4,000 people who I'm connected to have an opportunity to watch that video. And hopefully that will increase some traffic into me.
Amazing. Great to hear. Thank you. And Daniel, what's your IP pledge?
Yeah, I'm already a big advocate of it as part of, we provide holistic advice and it's really key. It's a foundation of any advice you give. So for me, there's 2 points really. Mike's hit the nail on the head with educating. It's educating the clients. I go into a lot of businesses and it's educating them on the need for their staff to have IP. And secondly, educating other wealth advisors. I'm more than happy and make myself available for people that are unsure about what it is. I've done this from the start of my career in this industry, and I'm a big advocate of having that foundation in place, because I don't want to go to bed one night and have not done something for one of my clients and they needed that protection and have to look them in the face the next time I see them and they ask why I didn't do it. So I'm a huge advocate of that, and it comes from educating people in the right way. And that would be my pledge, to educate everybody I encounter in this sphere, in this area, to make sure that they understand the importance and that they can be confident in talking about it.
I'd give him a thumbs up, but obviously you can't see me. So, but absolutely endorse exactly what you just said there. Brilliant. And again, my details, please share. If anyone wants to give me a call or get in contact, that'd be great. No problem at all.
That's great. So thank you. Yeah, thanks to all three. It's some great pledges there. So as we have been doing kind of throughout the week so far, we will be pulling everyone's pledges together on the virtual whiteboard and sharing that and checking in with you all to have a look at progress as well over the coming weeks. And for those who are watching and listening in today, if you haven't made a pledge already, there is still loads of time to do so. So please visit the IPTF website, download a pledge form and personalise it and email it back, or share on socials using the hashtags IPAW, so APAW, and Let's Talk IP. And that brings us to the end of today's wealth session. So if you, if you missed Monday or Tuesday's sessions, you can watch them back using links on the IPTF website. And don't forget to register if you haven't already for tomorrow's event on all things underwriting and claims for IP. Again, the link for that's on the IPTF website. So thanks everyone for joining today's session, and thanks also to our guest speakers for sharing their knowledge and experience with us. I'd like to wish you all a great afternoon and week ahead.